10 amazing guilty pleasure movies that critics hate passionately, but we love them. While film critics get it right more often than not, every once in a while they're liable to misinterpreting a movie or writing a rotten review that ends up ruining an actually incredible film. Sometimes there comes a movie made by an ambitious filmmaker that manages to extract the wrath out of every film critic. These movies are unfortunately kicked to the curb and forgotten by all. This is a shame, because they too are low-key fantastic movies. Of course, everyone is entitled to their opinion, and thanks to the abundance of streaming platforms coming up, movies are never more than a click away. Therefore, if you missed it then, nothing is stopping you from appreciating it now. This video will bring you a few such hidden guilty pleasures that critics hate, but are actually very enjoyable.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
He'll soon change back.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, 2003. Renowned adventurer Alan Quatermain leads a team of extraordinary figures with legendary powers to battle the technological terror of a madman known as the Phantom. This team, also known as a League, consists of seafarer inventor Captain Nemo, vampire Mina Harker, an invisible man named Rodney Skinner, American secret agent Tom Sawyer, the ageless, invincible Dorian Gray, and dangerous split personalities of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This movie, directed by Stephen Norrington, is loosely based on the first volume of the comic book series of the same name, by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. Like the comic, the film features prominent pastiche and crossover themes set in the 19th century. It showcases an assortment of fictional literary characters appropriate to the period of Victorian-era superheroes. Critics, like Roger Ebert, claimed that despite assembling a splendid team of heroes and a more than fantastic cast, the movie plunges into incomprehensible action and idiotic dialogue without cause or effect just when viewers feel like it's a real corker of an adventure. However, of all the comics of Alan Moore purchased by studios, this movie was probably the most exciting rendition. The sheer depth of the fictional world, combined with the references to the real world of literature, scored a direct hit on the steampunk psyche. The film starts with the same intriguing premise as the novel. Therefore, critics' opinions aside, every viewer must give it a watch. Weird Science, 1985. Two unpopular teenagers, Gary Wallace and Wyatt Donnelly, fail all attempts to be accepted by their peers. Their desperation to be liked leads them to create a woman with their computer. This creation is a living, breathing, gorgeous woman named Lisa, whose purpose is to boost their confidence level by creating situations that make them both appear manly. On their road to becoming accepted, they encounter many hilarious obstacles that give them an overall sense of silliness. This movie, directed by John Hughes, combines two of the great traditions of popular entertainment: inflamed male teenage fantasies and Frankenstein's monster. It's undoubtedly funnier and more profound than the predictable story that critics perceived it to be. It's Hughes' third movie that reveals the truth about teenagers' mindsets and inner psyche. Unlike his last two films, 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club, which depended mostly on characters and dialogue, Weird Science contains an abundance of special effects, including reverse photography that plays tricks with time. But the film's central theme remains simple, stating that fantasies can be hazardous. Be careful what you wish for. Kelly LeBrock, who plays the fantasy woman, probably appears to be every teenager's dream woman. However, the difference is she plays the character for warmth and motherly affection rather than sexual fulfillment. Unfortunately, critics pointed out that the movie might be too calculating and cautious for its repetitive vulgarity and wide array of gimmicks. Nevertheless, it's a guilty pleasure movie that isn't bad once watched.
Mr. Winchester's itching for some action. What am I? Oh. Hey, you big son of a bitch! Pick on somebody your own size!
My Name is Bruce, 2007. Four teenagers from the tiny mining town of Gold Lick vandalize a 19th century cemetery of Chinese laborers. One of them disturbs a demon guarding the souls of 100 workers that were killed in a cave. Jeff, the surviving teen, goes in search of his hero Bruce Campbell. He kidnaps the actor and brings him to Gold Lick to save the town. Bruce, thinking this has to be a birthday treat that his agent set up, plays along. He humors the townsfolk and chats up Jeff's highly unimpressed mother. However, as the demon slashes people, bodies begin piling up. What will Bruce do when he finds out that the monster is for real? In this horror comedy directed by Bruce Campbell himself, he depicts himself as a drunken slob behind his alimony. He's a vain, egotistical monster and a poser who is in flight from his recent movie. Critics say that despite Sam Raimi's influence, Bruce Campbell is not cut out to be a director. Nevertheless, the film is filled with schlocky jokes, mostly at the expense of Bruce Campbell as a washed-up B-movie actor. It does not contain too many special effects, but there are decent sound effects. Its slant towards the realm of B-movies makes its quality and quirky seem entirely in place and all the more enjoyable for viewers. Its dialogue might sound like they've been heard in other films, but they're delivered in new, inventive ways. Overall, this movie is a nod to pretty much every movie he has done in his life, and a hilarious one created on a shoestring budget for Campbell fans.
Get your shoulders square. I'm not going to start till we got it square. Here. Ready, go! Come on, you guys.
Over the Top, 1987. Lincoln Hawk is a struggling trucker who arm wrestles on the side to make extra cash while trying to rebuild his life. After his wife's death, he tries making amends with his son, who he'd left behind 10 years before. During their first meeting, his son doesn't think too highly of him until he enters the World Arm Wrestling Championship in Las Vegas. He hopes to win the grand prize of $100,000 and an expensive, current custom truck to start his own trucking company. Dating from the post-Rambo period, this movie, directed by Menahem Golan, has its roots in the Wallace Beery classic, The Champion. Except here, boxing is replaced by arm wrestling. Although viewers think the grapple scenes are devoid of thrills, they have considerable edge-of-the-seat suspense to offer throughout the movie. It's an iconic arm wrestling and truck movie that paints Sylvester Stallone in a mix of cocaine-loving and an adorably insane light. The film represents a deeper concept that critics give it credit for. For instance, the confrontation between Lincoln and his father is ideological. It's a commentary on a self-made man who represents the American dream being suppressed by a cold, institutional America that turns people into corporate drones. Lincoln does not want that for his son. It's making an argument in a more nuanced and more graceful manner than several other films, despite the nutty arm wrestling being its central theme. The movie contains creative symbolism with a bunch of great ideas bluntly inserted into it. Ghost Rider, 2007. Motorcyclist Johnny Blaze discovers that his father, Barton Blaze, has terminal cancer and makes a deal with Mephistopheles, giving his soul for his beloved father's health. However, the devil deceives Johnny and his father dies in a motorcycle accident during an exhibition. Johnny leaves the carnival, his town, his friends, and his girlfriend, Roxanne. Many years later, he becomes a famous motorcyclist who risks his life in his shows. He meets Roxanne again, who is now a TV reporter. However, Mephistopheles promises to release him from his deal if he becomes the Ghost Rider and defeats his evil son Blackheart, who wants possession of 1,000 evil souls and to unleash hell on Earth. This movie, directed by Mark Steven Johnson, is adapted from a popular comic book. It was made into a B-movie which critics unfortunately thought had a silly premise with cheesy special effects and blasphemously imbecile storyline. However, it becomes laughable and preposterous only if viewers take the movie too seriously. After all, being a B-movie, everyone knows that it has to be low budget. Therefore, a low-budget film warrants low-budget action sequences that, while predictable, are hilariously entertaining. Nicolas Cage plays a protagonist, Johnny, with an off-kilter intensity that makes for a strangely sympathetic portrayal. Eva Mendes is also effective in the girlfriend role. Although they don't have chemistry like Peter Parker and Mary Jane, it is enough to drive the audience and make a seeming love story amidst all the action and devils. Moreover, the Ghost Rider comics were extremely dark. Therefore, the movie taking a more campy approach was a refreshing change.
The cons are gonna go for it.
That's it! Red 58! Red 58!
The Longest Yard, 2005. Paul Crewe was a revered football superstar back in the day, but that time is now faded. When a messy drunk driving incident lands him in jail, Paul discovers that he was specifically requested by the warden Hazen, a dubious prison official who is well aware of Paul's athletic skills. He's then assigned the task of assembling a team of convicts to square off in a football game against the sadistic guards. Paul is ready and promises an exciting game with the help of fellow convict caretaker and an old legend, Nate Scarborough, as the coach. The warden and the guards are in the dark about what they're up against as Paul drives the force behind the new team. The Longest Yard is a movie directed by Peter Segal. It makes viewers appreciate it in a goofy way. It's a remake of the 1974 film of the same name starring Burt Reynolds, who appears as the coach, Nate Scarborough, in this film. It contains dogged ridiculousness that is amusing, especially with Adam Sandler playing the role of a quarterback. The movie is a surprisingly good-natured but crude, dumb, and somewhat typical vehicle for Chris Rock. It is filled with foul language and sexual innuendos, which granted points at a more adult viewership, but makes it an entertaining one for them nonetheless. It has several exotic jokes, cross-dressing cheerleaders, references to homophobia, sexism, you name it. Although critics have openly expressed their disapproval of how it's not a great work of art, it is undoubtedly filled with bizarre characters and unlimited laughs. Unquestionably, it accomplishes what it sets out to do: make a hilarious football movie, one that does not take itself too seriously.
Fire the missile! Whoa! Missiles!
Come on.
That's how we deal with heat seekers, chaps! We go for it!
The A-Team, 2010. 4 American soldiers in Iraq are sent on a mission to recover plates for printing $100 bills used to print $1 billion. After finishing the job and returning to the base, their commanding officer is killed in an explosion, and another operative steals their plates. These men are court-martialed and sent to different prisons. 6 months later, the leader Hannibal Smith gets a visit from a CIA spook who tells him that he has information about the man who took the plates and he wants him and his men to recover them. He then helps him and the rest of his team break out of the prison and go after the plates. However, they soon find out that the spook might have been an imposter and a military intelligence officer involved with one of them is looking for them. This action thriller, directed by Joe Carnahan, stars famous veteran actors like Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper, and the beautiful Jessica Biel. The movie uses a new style of violent action, which fragments sequences into several bits and pieces. The actors appear in flash frames intercut with CGI animation shards accompanied by loud noises, urgent music, and explosions. There's not much dialogue in the film. Most actors' emotions are reiterated via facial expressions. Not to mention, it has a fantastic scene that demonstrates Newton's third law, which states that there's an equal and opposite reaction for every action. The movie illustrates this as the heroes fall from an exploding airplane while inside an armored tank. Moreover, the action scenes also benefit from everyone having had a glance at their choreography beforehand. Amidst all these enjoyable qualities of the film, critics felt that some of the action was laughably far-fetched. The characters have the annoying ability to predict exactly what will happen and coordinate their responses. Nevertheless, it remains an enjoyable action flick that everyone must watch with a few beers and some popcorn with their best friends. They won't be disappointed. Primeval, 2007. In Burundi, a British forensic anthropologist examines the corpses in a mass grave, claiming that all the people in there were killed identically. When the woman digs her shovel into what she thinks is another grave, an unseen creature attacks and violently drags her into the river. The United Nations soldiers accompanying her into the water, but only her mangled corpse floats to the surface. In New York, a TV journalist, Tim Manfrey, is assigned by his boss to travel to Burundi with a reporter named Aviva Masters, who deals with animal stories and is interested in the creature. This creature turns out to be Gustav, a giant, fierce crocodile known to have taken hundreds of lives. On reaching, they learn that there is unrest in the bush where they are going, caused by a dangerous armed warlord who calls himself Little Gustav. This movie is the product of Michael Cattleman, who has previously directed a large and diverse number of television episodes. It is loosely based on real events of a giant man-eating Nile crocodile that lived in Burundi. The movie piously reminds viewers that white Westerners do not care about revolutions or genocides in Africa. Even if it was true, critics did not like the method via which this message was delivered. Nevertheless, it portrays a thrilling, action-packed monster horror tale. The film attempts to compare Gustav the crocodile to Godzilla, implying that men create most monsters. Viewers notice the social commentary that it showcases by discussing the issue of media's responsibility to display African suffering. The movie is genuinely underrated. Although people compare it to the past monster horror flicks, they claim that the mistake Primeval makes is taking itself too seriously, despite having the same schlocky effects and performances. However, it has a pretty impressive feat in that there is a unique spin that the other movies do not have. Rather than a crocodile appearing to people, the people come to it. Besides these, Cattleman uses dynamic action sequences to capture its thrill, which is incredibly fun to watch.
Wrong floor.
Godzilla, 1998. During extensive nuclear testing in the South Pacific Ocean, the low-profile scientist, Nico Tatopoulos, is summoned by the United States Army to shed light on a fishing ship's mysterious attack. They discover that there have been ominous sightings of a gargantuan sea dragon. Before long, a mutated, scaly nightmare in Godzilla's shape is a massive and all-powerful radioactive sauroid that threatens to level the rain-soaked New York City. The backdrop of a crippling bureaucracy and the military's attempts to stop the invincible beast prove futile. It's now up to Nico, Philippe, Audrey, and Victor to put an end to Godzilla's reign of terror before it's too late. Many say that the rain throughout Godzilla makes his special effects easier to obscure. If one never gets a clear view of the monster, how will they see its face created by schlocky special effects? The answer is that this movie needs to be watched with an open heart and mind. It is certainly no Jurassic Park by Steven Spielberg, but Roland Emmerich has nevertheless done a decent job in creating this monster film. Several unexplained things were pointed out while watching it, but this is only because they failed to see that the film does not take itself too seriously. None of what they say prevents us from enjoying and absorbing its campy fun. It certainly has a good cast of Matthew Broderick, Jean Reno, Maria Patillo, and Hank Azaria, who everyone loves. Furthermore, there is a strong bandwagon effect on this film. This means that people who haven't watched it often refuse to based on critics' comments and make it their own. Another point of criticism has been from a small crowd of purist fanboys who simply dislike the movie because the massive monster's appearance wasn't a man in a rubber suit, but rather special effects. Besides these, Emmerich gives viewers an epic, expensive-looking film that spans several genres. It features more coherent dialogue and subplots than the original Toho Godzilla film. Snakes on a Plane, 2006. While practicing motocross in Hawaii, Sean Jones witnesses the brutal murder of an important American prosecutor by the powerful mobster Eddie Kim. FBI agent Neville Flynn persuades Sean to testify against Eddie in LA. They board the red-eye flight 121 of Pacific Air, accompanying the entire first-class section. However, Eddie dispatches hundreds of different species of snakes airborne with a time-operated device in the luggage to release them into the flight. He intends for the plane to crash. Neville and the passengers enter a world of struggle with the snakes to survive. For several critics, this film was just absorbing that its title did not allude to any deeply embedded allegory or metaphor, but was merely referring to snakes on a plane. Unlike many films, the media did not receive any scoops or clips of the film beforehand either. The fans and viewers were the first ones to view it. Theoretically, this movie is the first Wikipedia film to be created by the users themselves. The writer supposedly scanned fan sites and blogs for what content to include in the script and agreed to a lucky blogger's suggestion. Although critics might grumble while buying a ticket to watch this film, there's an undeniably simple but ridiculous brilliance to the image of all those snakes slithering around the airplane seats. The CGI snakes might be shudder-inducing. Nevertheless, there is something cheerfully ridiculous about the film for which viewers must watch it at least once. How it switches to rubber snakes during hand-to-hand combat is rather comical and creative at the same time. The action is way over the top, but it's still worth watching for its handful of great moments containing low-brow comedy.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.